alone on school. Marcus Chen had stayed late at Ridgemore High hundreds of times before. As the school's custodian for the past 3 years, he knew every hallway, every classroom, every shadow. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the building seemed to be watching him. It was 9:47 p.m. when Marcus locked the main entrance behind Principal Hendricks, the last person to leave. The February wind howled outside, rattling the old windows. Marcus grabbed his cleaning cart and headed toward the third floor, where a pipe had burst in the science lab earlier that day. Water damage cleanup, his least favorite job, but it paid overtime. The elevator groaned as it climbed, its ancient machinery protesting. When the doors opened on the third floor, Marcus immediately noticed the temperature drop. His breath came out in small clouds, visible in the flickering fluorescent lights. "Furnace must be acting up again," he muttered, pulling his jacket tighter. But the thermostat in the hallway read 72 degrees. The science lab was at the far end of the corridor, past 23 classrooms that stood dark and empty. Marcus pushed his cart forward, the wheels squeaking in a rhythm that echoed off the lockers. About halfway down the hall, he heard it, a sound like a locker door closing, coming from behind him. Marcus turned. The hallway stretched empty in both directions, lockers standing silent and still. "Hello." His voice sounded too small in the vast corridor. "Security, is that you?" Security wouldn't arrive until midnight for the late-night rounds. Marcus knew he was alone. Had to be. He continued toward the lab, but the feeling of being watched intensified with every step. The shadows between the classroom doors seemed deeper than usual, and twice Marcus could have sworn he saw movement in his peripheral vision, quick, darting shapes that vanished when he looked directly at them. The science lab door hung open, revealing the water damage. Ceiling tiles had collapsed, exposing dark pipes and wiring above. Puddles covered the floor, reflecting the emergency exit sign's red glow. Marcus set up his industrial fan and began moving the wet ceiling tiles into garbage bags. That's when he heard the children laughing. It was faint at first, like it was coming from far away, high-pitched giggles echoing through the walls. But school had been dismissed 7 hours ago. Marcus froze, a soggy ceiling tile dripping in his hands. The laughter grew louder, and now Marcus could hear footsteps, small feet running up and down the hallway outside. Multiple children, playing some kind of game, running, stopping, giggling, then running again. "This isn't funny," Marcus called out, dropping the tile and walking to the doorway. "Whoever's here needs to leave right now. School's closed." The footsteps stopped instantly. The laughter cut off mid-giggle. In the sudden silence, Marcus heard something else, a voice, young and sing-song, coming from the classroom directly across the hall. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." Marcus's blood ran cold. Room 304. He knew that room. Everyone at Ridgemore knew that room. 23 years ago, in March of 2002, a fire had broken out in room 304 during after-school tutoring. 5 children had died, trapped when the door jammed. Their teacher, Miss Reeves, had died trying to break through the window. The room had been rebuilt, remodeled, repainted, but staff members refused to use it. It remained locked, supposedly for storage, though Marcus had never seen anyone enter or leave it. "Ashes, ashes, we all fall down." The voice came again, and this time Marcus heard others joining in. 5 young voices, singing an eerie harmony. "Stop it," Marcus shouted, his voice cracking. "This isn't funny." He crossed the hallway and grabbed the handle of room 304. Locked, as always, but through the small window in the door, Marcus could see movement, shadows dancing across the walls, cast by a light source he couldn't identify. The shadows were small, child-sized, and they were holding hands, moving in a circle. Marcus fumbled for his master key, hand shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get it in the lock. The key turned. The door swung open. The room was empty. No children. No light source. Just rows of desks covered in dust, and on the blackboard, written in fresh white chalk, "Help U.S. Mr. Chen." "We're still here." Marcus stumbled backward, his shoulder hitting the hallway wall. This wasn't possible. He'd cleaned that blackboard himself just last week when he'd been asked to store some old textbooks in there. It had been blank. Completely blank. "You're not real," Marcus whispered. You're not. All 23 classroom doors slammed shut simultaneously, the sound like thunder in the enclosed space. The lights began to flicker, first one, then another, then all of them in sequence, creating a strobe effect that made Marcus's vision swim. In the flashing darkness, Marcus saw them. 5 children standing in the hallway, spread out between him and the elevator. They wore clothes from the early 2000s, baggy jeans, oversized shirts, one girl in butterfly hair clips. Their faces were pale, their eyes dark hollows, and their mouths moved but no sound came out. One of them, a boy with a Pokemon backpack, pointed at Marcus, then pointed at room 304. What do you want? Marcus's voice was barely audible over his hammering heart. The girl with butterfly clips opened her mouth wider, impossibly wide, and this time sound did come out, a scream that wasn't quite human, high-pitched and agonized, the sound of someone burning alive. Marcus ran. He didn't think, didn't plan, just ran toward the stairs at the far end of the hallway, away from the elevator, away from the children. His footsteps echoed, but so did others, small feet chasing him, getting closer. He could hear their breathing, feel cold air on the back of his neck. The stairwell door was locked. That was impossible. Fire code required stairwells to remain unlocked from the inside. Marcus yanked on the handle, pounded on the door, screamed for help that wouldn't come. The children were right behind him now. Marcus could smell smoke, acrid and thick, could feel heat that shouldn't be there. When he turned around, all 5 children stood in a semicircle, blocking any escape. They were burning. Flames licked up their clothes, consumed their hair, but they didn't react, just stared at Marcus with those hollow eyes. I'm sorry. Marcus sobbed, not even knowing why he was apologizing. I'm so sorry. The boy with a Pokemon backpack stepped forward, and when he spoke, his voice sounded normal, just a kid, maybe 10 years old. You have to tell them. Tell them we're still here. Tell them we need help. Who? Marcus pressed himself against the locked door. Tell who? The families, the girl with butterfly clips said. They think we're gone. They think we moved on. But we're trapped. We've been trapped here for 23 years. The other children nodded in unison. The door was locked. A small boy in a Superman shirt said. They locked us in. The fire was already burning, and someone locked the door from the outside. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. What? No, the investigation said the door jammed. It was an accident. It was locked, they said together, their voices overlapping. We heard the key turn. We heard footsteps walking away while we screamed. Who? Marcus whispered. Who locked it? Find the key, the children said. Find the key and we can leave. Find the key and tell everyone the truth. The flames consuming them grew brighter, hotter. Marcus felt his skin beginning to blister from the heat. Where's the key? With the one who started the fire. With the one who locked the door. With the one who still works here. The children began to fade, their forms becoming translucent. As they disappeared, the temperature returned to normal, and the light stopped flickering. Marcus stood alone in the hallway, his back against the stairwell door, which now opened when he turned the handle. He didn't go home that night. Instead, Marcus spent hours in the school's administrative office, digging through files from 2002, the fire investigation report, staff rosters, maintenance logs. At 4:17 a.m., Marcus found it, a discrepancy in the timeline. The fire department report stated they'd arrived at 4:45 p.m. The school's automated log showed the fire alarm was triggered at 4:47 p.m., 2 minutes after the fire department supposedly got the call. Someone had called 911 before the alarm went off. Someone knew about the fire before the detection system registered it. Marcus cross-referenced the phone records. The call had come from the custodian's office. The custodian in 2002 had been Harold Pritchett, who'd retired 5 years ago and moved to Florida. But Marcus remembered Harold. Everyone did. He'd been beloved, worked at Ridgemont for 30 years before retiring with honors. He'd been the first person to report seeing the fire, had tried to help evacuate the building. He'd been called a hero. Marcus's hands shook as he found Harold's retirement photo in the archives. In the picture, Harold smiled at the camera, standing in front of his custodian's office. Around his neck, barely visible, hung a lanyard with keys, and one key in particular caught Marcus's eye. It was distinctive, old-fashioned, with a round head and ornate design. The same key that currently sat in the lost-and-found box in Marcus's office, labeled only with a date, March 15th, 2002, the day of the fire. Marcus picked up the phone and called the police. As he waited for them to answer, he heard children laughing again, but this time it sounded joyful, relieved. When he looked toward the hallway, he saw 5 small figures standing in the distance. They weren't burning anymore. They were smiling. The girl with butterfly clips waved. One by one, they faded away, not in flames this time, but in light, soft and warm, like sunrise breaking through darkness. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Marcus Chen. I'm calling to report information about an old case. The Ridgemorn High fire from 2002. It wasn't an accident. As Marcus gave his statement, explaining what he'd found, explaining what the children had told him, he felt the atmosphere in the school change. The oppressive weight that had hung over the building lifted. The shadows in the corners seemed less dark. The silence felt peaceful rather than threatening. When the police arrived 2 hours later with investigators from the fire marshal's office, Marcus showed them everything. The key was sent for analysis. Harold Pritchard was contacted in Florida. By the end of the week, the truth came out. Harold had been embezzling from the school district, hiding evidence in room 304. The children had discovered his documents. He'd started the fire to destroy the evidence, locked the door to ensure no one could escape with what they'd seen. Harold Pritchard was arrested and charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. The families of the 5 children, now grown adult themselves, finally got closure. A memorial was built in the school courtyard, with the children's names engraved in marble. Jennifer Alvarez, Marcus Williams, Sophie Chen, David Rodriguez, and Anthony Washington. Marcus quit his job at Ridgemorn High the day after the memorial was unveiled. Some buildings, he decided, carried too much weight. But before he left, he returned to room 304 one final time. The room was empty and clean. On the blackboard, in that same white chalk handwriting, were 5 words. Thank you. We're free now. Marcus erased the message, locked the door, and walked away. That night, he slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. And in his dreams, he heard children laughing, not the haunting, desperate laughter of trapped spirits, but the genuine joy of souls finally finding their way home. The truth had set them free. Sometimes, the living owe the dead more than just remembrance. Sometimes, they owe them justice. And sometimes, being alone in school means you're never really alone at all, not when the past refuses to stay buried, and the innocent dead demand that someone, anyone, finally listen to what they have to say.